بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome everybody to the Safina Hoodies Nothing But Facts live stream on a gorgeous Thursday, which pretty much I don't know if we're officially spring yet or what, but at least for us here in the great state of New Jersey, it is beautiful out. Basically, leave your jacket. You hardly need a jacket. Maybe it gets cold in the evening, but the month of March, we're in March 6th. We're in March, right? Mm-hmm. The month of March is probably going to be up and down like this. Then once we hit April, it's probably going to be spring, right? It'll probably be spring in April. So let's get to our tracker now. We're at 99,575 subscribers. How amazing is that, right? So that's not bad, right? Not a bad. And the I have to say the Ramadan series this year is doing really well. This Ramadan series, have you seen the videos?
Yeah, I've seen a few of them.
Yeah, they're going really well. Yeah.
What are people saying in the comments?
I mean, I see 2-3 good comments and then I close it before I jinx myself, right? So usually that's my my method of going through the comments. Otherwise, it's going to be war because how nasty a lot of comments are. And I have to say, a lot of them are dumb, right? The comment is just a dumb comment, right? And it's something that you can't take seriously. And sometimes there are questions that I feel that should be answered, and we answer them. If not me, then somebody else. But that's why you have to have a different type of temperament if you go online, because people, they're able to go to the bottom of their nafs and hurl at you what they would never say in front of polite company, right? So you got to accept it. That's part of it, you know? It's part of it. It's.
How many subscribers you had last Ramadan?
Huh?
Do you remember how many subscribers?
Oh, that's a good question. We could probably ask, but that's a good question. I don't know how many we had last Ramadan. How many subs did we have last Ramadan? 70, and he wanted to get to 100 by Ramadan, and I told him he's crazy, right? And I thought, there's no way, right, to get to 100 by Ramadan. But we did. We're about to, any minute now. And I've always said this, like, I love giving these talks. I would do it anyway. I would do it if there are 4 people. I would do it if my only audience was my own kids, right, for the love of the subject. But if you're successful at it at the same time, it's a little added sauce, a little added curry on top, right? Timur, message? Yeah, bismillah. Let's see what we got here. Today we're covering hope and fear in the Risala of not Ibn Abi Zayd, al-Qushayri, al-Risala al-Qushayriya. That's what we're covering today. Let me just give Timur this code. You know, two-factor authentication is like annoying as heck. What's your opinion on 2FA? You know, I feel like half my day is spent giving people codes.
Yeah, it's one of those things that that's unnecessary, and I think you're gonna find that's gonna start to melt away.
What's the solution to not getting hacked? Because I'm always getting hacked too.
Well, and the problem is like,
turn this gentleman's mic on over. Yeah.
The problem is, how many steps does it take to get to the thing you want? And the reason why it's going to change, and I don't know how it's going to change, it's because it's disrupting people at work. So all these big corporations, every
2 seconds.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I got to put in my password again and check my phone or whatever. Multiply that by millions of employees across the whole month.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars a week in wasted productivity trying to two-factor your authenticate yourself.
Here's the thing. If you know this, if I got a guy who's doing something in Toronto or another guy doing something in his house late at night, and I'm done though. I'm done working. I can't put my phone down because he needs an authentication.
Yeah.
Right? So I need to be there. We got to find a solution. Now let's look at this. Waqar Latif is asking a question. The hoodies. Ryan, when you get a moment, fire up the hoodies because these hoodies are going to Umrah for youth. We have one hoodie wearer right there. And you sent 1% or 2% of a person to Umrah. So you're getting 5% or what's the math? I don't know the math. 5% of the reward of that Umrah because you're sending them there.
Awesome.
They're eating, drinking, doing everything based on the donations people. Now, giveaway donations, it's very common to do donations, right? But I wanted to do it through these hoodies because Omar, can you get put one of the hoodies like really big on the screen so everyone could see it. I want to do it through these. Now you're not going to break the bank yet with these hoodies until they catch on, but I figured this is going to be our way to send kids to Umrah for youth. So we got hoodies and we got Best Beads, but they keep selling out. So Waqar says, are the sizes standard oversized sizes? I'm a medium, but on the size chart it says 26.8. Can we get an explanation, a tafsir of the size charts? Okay, these are designed to be oversized. They're designed to be comfortable, right? Like they're not fitted hoodies. So Taimur, do you have any commentary on the nature of these sizes?
It's too big on me. I should have gotten a medium. It's oversized.
It's oversized, she said.
Yeah. Just size down.
I always,
And comfort level?
But they're all comfortable.
But see? That,
Yeah.
If you're large and you're buying a large, maybe you should buy a medium if you want it.
Yeah.
if you want it to fit in perfectly, then you go a size down, correct, Taimur? If you want it baggy, you buy your actual size. See, I always get these hoodies. I always get them big.
See, for me,
Yeah.
because I'm fat. So if I wear my size, I feel thin because it's baggy. Or
Yeah.
I get a size down and feel better about myself because now it fits perfectly. It's really good for your self-esteem. Yeah.
That's a good hack.
Yeah.
That is a good hack. But these hoodies are, we're coming up with new designs. Every month we'll come up with a different design. And the Patreon members will get themselves an extra little discount. I think that window came and went, but the Patreon person who runs it is not in front of me here. But I'll ask him. But for the Patreon folks, they're already supporting the live stream. So, Omar, your WhatsApp is on the screen. Yeah. Whatchamacallit. So they get an extra discount on it. All right, let's turn to our subject of the day, which is الرسالة القشيرية في علم التصوف. قال الله تعالى يدعون ربهم خوفا وطمعا. The summary of fear and hope. Allah Ta'ala mentions in it, they call upon their Lord out of fear and out of greed. Greed has a good spot. People have a greedy nature. Everyone has a greedy nature, right? Everyone wants things, but where is its location? Right? We talked about Abu Hassan al-Shadee, what he said about, or what he alluded to about self-centeredness. People have a self-centered tendency, but where is the location of self-centeredness? The location for self-centeredness is not that whenever you're with people, you draw the attention to yourself. That's what we hate, right? That every time that your whole worldview just revolves around yourself and you never think about others. That's what we hate about self-centeredness. But Abu Hassan al-Shadili told us a story. He said, "Oh Allah, when will I become one of your awliya?" He said, "When you become grateful." He said, "Then when will I become grateful? I think I'm grateful. When will I become grateful?" He said, "When you view all blessings, I created them for you." That is where self-centeredness is acceptable. That Allah made everything for me, for my benefit. So I got to be grateful towards it and give it their rights. So he said, what about prophets and kings? Because clearly kings, everything is really for them. And in the spiritual world, the prophets, everything is for them. He said, La. He said, even the king was created to protect you, and even the prophets were sent to guide you. And if you look at children, children are in fact very much like that. They're not even conscious at all. I don't even think children really have any self-consciousness, but they never compare themselves. They never try to rank themselves. They never compete against anybody. So that's the beauty of the innocence of children. And the saying of Prophet Isa, that's allegedly that he said, "You not enter Jannah until you are childlike." This is in the Christian tradition. But the explanation of that is the innocence, you don't compare, you don't. So instead of looking at a king and envying him, see, this is what is meant by this. Rather than looking at the king or the rich and envying them, you look at them as Allah created them to bring a service to me. And that's why that's a good self-centeredness. So what about greed? Greed is good when you direct it to Allah Ta'ala, because he never suffer a loss. Allah Ta'ala can never lose anything, whereas humans can suffer losses. Here's a question real quick. What time is it here in ONJ? I have almost nothing time to tune in to these streams. It's after the iftar rush for Taraweeh over here in the UK. So we'll try to get back over here on the streams closer to 1:30. Today it's my fault. But we'll try to get to 1:30 if Omar's class permits. Your classes permit? Because I'm done subbing for the high school. Yeah, I'm done subbing for the high school, so I have no excuse to not be here. I'll be here around like 12 to 1. All right, that's what I say at least. All right, so يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا. So fear also is a paralyzing thing. But fear of Allah is an energizing thing. When you fear the Creator, it's energizing. That's Allah. That's how He made it. When you fear the Creator, you rush to do what's good. It's energizing. But when you fear creation, it's paralyzing. Let's take this first saying here. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يدخل النار من بكى من خشية الله حتى يلج اللبن في الضرع ولا يجتمع غبار في سبيل الله ودخان جهنم في منخري عبد أبدا. Subhanallah. He says here, no one who weeps for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever enters the fire. And لا يجتمع غبار, the dust of battle never comes into a nose, and then the ash, the smoke of hell enters the same nose. Meaning, if the dust of battle enters your nostrils, all right, you will be free from the smoke of the fire. Right? Subhanallah. And that is a narration from a Tirmidhi and a Nasa'i. You know, the Malikiyah preferred a Nasa'i. They loved a Nasa'i, Sunan and Nasa'i. So, it says here, عن أنس رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لو تعلمون ما أعلم لضحكتم قليلا ولبكيتم كثيرا. In hadith متفق عليه. If you knew what I knew, you would laugh little and weep much. And that's why one of the great burdens of the prophets is how much knowledge they have. Now, when you think about the knowledge of prophets, you have to think about it's not just amazing that they get to see what heaven looks like. Well, they also get to see what hell looks like and who's in it. Then they have to deal with that person the next day. The Prophet ﷺ was also burdened and tested when some people say blindness, paralysis, right? These kinds of things prophets never suffer from them. They never suffer from being dull of intellect or ugly of face or off of body. Like their bodies are always perfect ratios, proportions. Someone says like, well, what kind of trials then? Some people have worse trials than that. What kind of trial can he suffer if he's such a great body, great mind, great lineage? Where is the suffering? Right? So there is another type of suffering that's related to their knowledge. And when the prophets are informed that their most beloved children are going to be killed or are going to die. And this is where he's going to die. And guess who will kill him? Your ummah will kill him. What kind of tribulation is that? So the only solution to all tribulations is to remove the love of dunya from your heart. There's no other solution to tribulations, is to remove mahabbatud dunya from your heart, because that's the only way to make the math work, right? Because if the math is stacked up against me, and it could be, this could be you, the math could be stacked up against anybody, and it is stacked up against a lot of people. Like if we're putting the goal of this ultimate happiness and enjoying all these wonderful things in this world, but then the odds are against you, the only way to level out your emotions and your feelings is to shrink this whole world, to make this whole hayatud dunya worth nothing, and to elevate the akhirah. That's the only way to make it work. And that's what zuhd is. And that's why al-bala muzahid. Bala will make you a zahid. It will literally make you a zahid. It will make you somebody who just wants to leave this hayatud dunya. And I remember seeing in Cairo, the people are extremely poor around the ancient masajid. And they hover, and they, for some reason, all live around there. I was at a masjid named Sayyida Zainab there. She's one of Ahl al-Bayt. Thank you for the translation there. Bala means tribulations, and Zahid is an ascetic. So, yeah, I appreciate that. So this man, he must have had a nice thick sweater. It was wintertime. Nice thick sweater and a scarf, and he was wearing like multiple pants. And you could tell that that's all he had, because it was tattered, like all around. And he had like a little beard, and he didn't look he looked like he had made wudu, but he still wasn't clean. Like he made wudu, but you could still tell like he hasn't taken a shower in a long time. His limbs were clean, but the nails, the fingertips, like you could just tell that he was not somebody who had the wealth even to change his clothes, or he's probably been wearing the shirt for a long time. Same clothes for a long time. And then he was sitting in the corner with a cup of tea, just making dhikr. And the grave of Sayyida Zainab was like on the side there, and he was on the other side, and he was just sitting there making dhikr. And I just like observed him. And then he had a cup of tea. He enjoyed that cup of tea. Then I said, I'm going to talk to him. So I went to talk to him. I said, so what's happening with you? And tell me about this. He said, I just come here all day. He used to be collecting trash. Right? He used to collect trash. And he just come sit here all day. Right? And he talked about Sayyida Zainab like this is, like she's alive. I said, I come and I sit in the shade of Sayyida Zainab. The rihab is like the protective shade of. I can't imagine what kind of things happened to this man in his life. No family, it seems. No support, it seems, right? Extreme poverty. So, but I think that he handled it right. Like the only way to handle such a thing is to just thrust yourself in thinking about the next life. Because this life, the math will not add up for you. And sometimes people say, well, I don't know, am I giving up if I do that? Am I giving up? And the answer to that is we should be fighters in the day, and we should do that at night. That's the breakdown. In the daytime, you got to go fight for your situation, right? It's not fighters in the day and worshipers at night is not just for the military, right? It's not just for soldiers. Even for us, like we fight for ourselves and try to improve our situations in the daytime, but part of our spiritual training is to learn how to just literally switch it off. And just tell ourselves, halas, now that the night is here, I'm leaving this dunya tomorrow morning. I'm leaving completely. You have to psych yourself. Riyada is now translated as exercise, but literally what it means is to get yourself to do something. If we're people of the spiritual path, if you know what the spiritual path is, it's literally a type of controlling your brain and your mind and psyching yourself out. But with the truth, not with falsehood. Like MJ used to psych himself out all the time. He used to invent lies. He used to invent things that people said about him that they never said about him, right, to get him going. And he used to take a very small, nothing, slight, and he used to expand it in his mind to motivate himself, right? You knew I was at the restaurant and you didn't say hello? Oh, okay, right? And he expand this in his mind. But that's all fine and good because that's in play, right? It's play. But we're doing this in the truth. In truth. You have to literally psych yourself, we're leaving the dunya tomorrow. What am I worried about? You literally decrease all of your stress. You highlight it, select all, delete. When you think about al-maut and you psych yourself out that, khalas, sunset, I'm never coming back to the dunya. Tomorrow morning I wake up in the afterlife. This is my last night. Try it. You have to psych yourself out hard. You're going to find yourself, what you actually did, without realizing it, you hit select all, delete on all your stresses. People have stresses because of all the material weaknesses they have, shortcomings they have. And you have to have you will have shortcomings. Everyone has shortcomings. People who have great materialism, they have no spirituality. People who are out there making millions, 9 times out of 10, they got no family, right? 9 times out of 10, people who are out there literally making millions, they have no family. And 9 times out of 10, people with a great family life. Imran, tafaddal, khud ma'al qadin. The Melod man is here. It's sort of a secret, but he's not showing up on camera, so no problem. You guys know the channel on where are you? Instagram, Twitter, TikTok? What are you on? TikTok, Instagram, SoundCloud. He's going retro, retro tech. Is SoundCloud even in business? What is their business model? Ads? I don't know. It's always ads, but SoundCloud used to be hot. Remember SoundCloud? They used to be on fire. You know when they stopped being on fire? Is when they disallowed people to record on the spot. You had to record externally and upload. That's when they shot themselves. But in any event, we weave from the dunya to the akhirah, right? Michael Jordan, SoundCloud, death. It's like a very interesting ingredients to this conversation. All of our conversations end up being like this. But anyway, what you end up having is you have to psych yourself out. And it is extremely. Oh, I was saying, why is it that everyone is short is on the short end of the stick in some way, shape, and form? Because certain blessings, they're almost very hard to get both at the same time. Usually, you get one. So we were saying, people with huge, wonderful families, chances are they don't have tons of money, right? That's usually the truth. Like if you think of a quaint childhood. You think of a kid with a bunch of siblings, a mom and a dad in a little cottage somewhere, right? You don't think of a huge palace when you think of the quaint, beautiful, idyllic childhood. You think of modesty and everyone's happy, right? So things, if everything good, I can guarantee you we can think of and find examples of the corollary, what's missing in that person's life. Powerful people, what's missing in their life? Peace of mind. Like they never have peace of mind. You can't. If you're very powerful, you're constantly thinking because there's people gunning for you left and right. Furthermore, blessings are not distributed evenly in this life. Why would I invest in something where we are told straight up the blessing will not be distributed evenly in this life? Some people are wonderfully endowed financially. They're born, they call this being born on third base. In a baseball analogy, maybe the British don't know about this, but American baseball is basically, what's your sport called again? Cricket. All right. Cricket, when it came to America, it became called baseball, and it was different. You have to run to base 1, first base, second base, third base, and back to home. That's how you get a run, right? In baseball, right? Cricket, it's not. Cricket, you just go to the post and come back, and you keep coming and come back. I still don't understand cricket, believe it or not. After all those years in England, I don't get it. I don't know how it's played. And I don't think I can ever tolerate it because the game's like 8 hours long. In any event, so in baseball, there's an analogy called being born on third base. Some people are born on third base. They're born on third base, in the bottom of in the first inning with no outs, how are you not going to win in life? You have to almost try to fail. You're going to win in life. Other people are born in the ninth inning with 2 outs, down by 1, right? And nobody on base. Chances of winning, very slim, right? And then a whole bunch of people are in the middle. So life is not going to give you even playing field. That's why don't try to compare yourself. And all that comparisonitis, you can end that disease from your mind simply by thinking about al-maut. And that's the beauty of dhikrul maut. It's one of the greatest gifts that prophets have come down with, is to inform us you don't have to worry about anything. You don't like the way this distribution is? You're right. It isn't fair. Allah has made it uneven on purpose. That's your test. So when you say Karl Marx and all that, it's not fair. That's essentially communism is it's not fair, right? And everyone has to share everyone's toys. I'm telling you, if you watch a child, they have Marxist tendencies, right? Because they're kids. They don't know any better, right? They'll take your toy and say, and then when you take it back, you say, you're not sharing. Well, and I'm like, why would he need to share? It's his toy. Let him play with his toy. If he wants to share, he shares. If he doesn't want to share, he doesn't share, right? There's no obligation to share. As some kids have been raised to think there's an obligation that you have to share all your stuff. No, I have to teach them. No, they're not, right? They're not now, and they don't be as an adult either. They don't have to share with you, right? So you have to be patient. You should share with them, but don't expect them to share with you, right? So this idea of life being unfair, it's not great. We don't like it. The greatest thing prophets brought down is to explain this and to explain why you don't need to worry about it. Because you're leaving this hayat dunya. So we're talking about this from the knowledge of the prophets is a huge test. Their knowledge of who's going to die, when they're going to die, who's going to suffer. Imagine you're sitting right now in a room with your family, and then you get information that someone in the next 10 years will suffer dramatically. And then someone in the next 10 years will benefit dramatically, will have a wonderful life. Then you're told, treat them both equally. Like, that's really hard to do. It's really hard to treat someone equally when you know this person's going to suffer in life. You feel like, I think like I want to give him a little extra now. And when you think of Allah's knowledge and you see some youth be totally spoiled, like you cannot be more spoiled than this. Allah has given you everything, your parents give you everything. Think to yourself, maybe that is because Allah has destined hardship for him later. So he's getting all his blessings now, so his heart can be softened to the generosity of Allah and know Allah is generous, so that when things are hard later, he'll have belief. And some people, they're toughened up now so that they could know what poverty tastes like, so that when they become millionaires later, they'll share their wealth. Or, and if they don't, it'll be against them. So if the Prophet says, if you knew what I knew, you would not laugh much, and you would cry much. So it's one of the blessings that we don't have all this knowledge, right? We don't know the future. We don't know a lot of things. We get to live almost innocent. Even Abu Hamd al-Ghazali says that a little bit of ghafla, heedlessness, is a blessing. Because it's only because we're heedless of Jahannam and Judgment Day is when we're able to do our work in the morning, right? Only because of heedlessness are we able to cook food and eat it and be with people. Only because of heedlessness. Muhammad Ghazali said, if everyone had a perfect awareness of what awaits us in the grave and in the afterlife, no one would build, no one would pave a street, no one would farm, no one would do anything except sit in the masjid all day. So even ghafla, it has its benefits, and it has its reasons why Allah has brought it down on the earth. Yes, you got to go? Yes. All right, take care. Barakallahu feek. When are you going to come back?
Allahu a'lam. Inshallah, sometime soon.
You never know. Okay.
Trip and everything else. Yeah, that ghafla thing, if you think about.
Yeah.
My wife works with kids.
Subhanallah.
She's a teacher, yeah? And you have children who are either on the spectrum or who are like savants, and they can't, because they're so aware, because they have no filter.
Yeah.
They can't operate. They can't function.
They can't function.
Yeah. So like even in this world, there's examples of, even for us, a little bit of extra awareness than normal, and you can't even operate.
You can't function.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Allah.
Okay, so that one.
All right. Wa salam. Take care. All right. So he continues. قال الأستاذ أبو القاسم الخوف معنى متعلقه في المستقبل. Fear is something connected to the future. يخاف أن يحل به مكروه أو يفوته محبوب. You fear that you'll miss out on something you love or suffer something you hate. ولا يكون هذا إلا لشيء سيحصل في المستقبل. So it has to do with the future. Where is he going with this? Well, he's going to tell you right now. If you shorten your amal, طول الأمل, if you shorten it, then you don't have any fears or anxieties. You shorten it. So here's the thing. I'm telling you that this thing could go one or two extremes. You do none of it, you're going to be miserable. You do too much of it, you're going to give up on life, and you will fail in life, and you'll come later on, 10 years later, and realize, I didn't do anything in life, and the result of that will be you're going to turn your back on the deen that caused you to do this. And you say, oh, this deen is terrible, right? It caused me to turn my back on life and all that stuff. So the way I like to look at it is that we go out to war in the day, you wake up and you go to war. Whatever it is your goals are, you try to attain them. And you need and must have some dunya. Now, most people, you have to tell them, lay off the dunya, right? But there are some tulab ilm, they must be told, you need some dunya. And in some cases, it's physical. They may have a physical ailment, they don't care about. There's zuhd, right? And then 15 years later, they regret it. Like, I could have fixed it in my youth, right? No, you got to fix it. You take it from the people who've been around the block. You have to care for your dunya. If you don't, one day you're going to have a kid who'll be embarrassed to walk with you. Then you realize, oh, shoot. This is not the right way to be a zahid. Zuhd is in your heart. This is a very materialistic world that we live in, right? And you need some material. Even Sheikh Hussain Abdul Sattar, the physician, his sheikh, I remember a saying from his sheikh, which was that wealth is the actual source of zuhd in this era that we live in. Why? Because if you're wealthy, you don't need to sell your religion. You don't need to do haram if you're wealthy. But if you're in need, you will be compromised. Your job says do this, and you're like, oh shoot, I can't afford to lose my job right now. So you end up doing it. So wealth saves you from being compromised, of course, by the permission of Allah, but it's the means from being compromised, from not being compromised. So he says here, فَأَمَّا مَا يَكُونُ فِي الْحَالِ مَوْجُودًا فَالْخَوْفُ لَا يَتَعَلَّقُ بِهِ. You don't fear something that's actually present. وَالْخَوْفُ مِنَ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى أَنْ يَخَافَ أَنْ يُعَاقِبَهُ إِمَّا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَإِمَّا فِي الْآخِرَةِ. So the fear of Allah is also the fear of the consequences attached to sins. There are bad consequences in this life. And the arifina billah, they connect, al-aql, connects between the consequences of sins in this life. Forget the next life. In this life. Like, we don't need to go far on alcohol. The negative consequences in this life. We don't need to go far on gambling. You already see gambling is destroying everything. It's literally destroyed sports. It's completely destroyed it. And it's continuing, right? It's only a matter of time. And they can't run it back. Once you legalize it, you're never making it illegal again, right? You can't run it back. So we're going to start seeing like games thrown, championships thrown. Who knows what we're going to see? But it's destroying it. Zina, we know the problems that it causes. So, arifina billah, the fear is not just of some unseen punishment in the afterlife. That's almost too hard for us to put our heads around. No, in this life, you're going to suffer something. And likewise, the good, in this life it produces goodness. And that was sufficient, right? It says, fear is the fear of the consequence Allah attached to sins, to certain deeds. You fear those consequences. Explain those consequences to people and show them the examples. And that's why anytime that you have a good group of people, usually in their secondary circle or primary circle, there's a very bad person. And that's why the rest of the people became good, because they saw an example. Usually, sometimes it's in someone a little older than all of us, and he just went far astray. And then something terrible happens, but we're all watching this and fearing it. قد فرض الله سبحانه وتعالى على العباد أن يخافوه. You have to respect Allah Ta'ala. Allah is not just love and that's it. No, He says, وَخَافُونِ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Fear me, not just the punishment. Sheikh Sayyid Ramadan al-Bulchi said, how do we love Allah and fear Him at the same time? He said, you fear that you lose His love. The fear of Allah is the fear to lose His love, and it can be lost. Nobody has a free pass. And the prophets, they're the ones who are guaranteed. However, look at their behavior. They don't behave as if they have a free pass. So nobody has a free pass, and nobody's allowed to act as if they have a free pass. وَإِيَّايَ فَارْهَبُونَ. Flee unto me in ibadah. الراهب is someone who flees to Allah Ta'ala in ibadah. سمعت الأستاذ أبا علي الدقاق يقول الخوف على مراتب الخوف والخشية والهيبة. Now listen to this. I love when they do this. الخوف من شرط الإيمان وقضيته. قال الله تعالى وخافوني إن كنتم مؤمنين. From Iman is the fundamental fear of God. والهيبة من شرط المعرفة. Allah says ويحذركم الله نفسه. Allah warns you of Himself. So to truly have knowledge of Allah, you have to have honor and awe. Al-Hayba is to be in awe of somebody. You're in awe. You watch your stuff. You watch what you speak about because you're in awe. يقول سمعت محفوظا يقول سمعت أبا حفص يقول الخوف صوت الله يقوم به الشاردين عن بابه. Subhanallah. He said, the Arifina Billah see that even the divine punishment is for people's favor. Fear, threats, it's for the people who are fleeing from Allah's door. So Allah then goes from the other side, sends lions and tigers and bears, forcing you to go back to His door. Like you have a feast, as the Prophet ﷺ gave the example of the feast one time. And you have people who refuse to eat from this feast. And they think they could get better food elsewhere. Let me get better food elsewhere. You know, there's nothing other out there except a barren forest. There's nothing. You're not going to get anything. So out of mercy to those people, that Allah sends from the other side vicious animals to chase them back. One of the things you got to look at is that punishments, fear, like the severity of the punishment. When I look at that now, from a different perspective, then I would say, all right, you've done me a favor. I don't have to think about this now. I don't have to think about it. Like fasting Ramadan. Nobody thinks about it. You do it. Fast the 6 days of Shawwal. Oh, there's a lot of thinking now, right? Especially others Malikiya, they don't even have this. The Malikis don't have this. The Malikis fast any 6 days in the year. And they disliked connecting it directly to Ramadan out of fear that people would feel guilty if they don't do it and think it's a fard. But let's hypothetically say, because even before, there was a time I didn't know this, right? 6 days of Shawwal would come around and I'd be like, oh, I really should do it, but I want to eat, right? That's what we all think about. There's no punishment. That's why. Because there's no punishment, now I got to think. Once something becomes, there's a fire on one side, you've done me a favor. I don't have to think about it anymore. I'll just do it. And that's the beauty of it, is that you don't have to think about this anymore. That's what I think. Punishments are actually a great blessing. It's a great blessing. And the vividness. You know that if I say punishment, it's already bad. But if you list the punishment, and some people are very vicious themselves, they will never be moved unless they hear graphic descriptions of punishment. As someone who was, anyone who was spoiled, anyone who was stubborn, anyone who has these qualities, when you see in the Quran the nature of the divine punishments, it's like opening up like a book describing a horror movie. It's just graphic. I remember very clearly. فَتُكْوَى بِهَا جِبَاهُهُمْ. Their foreheads will be ironed. Imagine taking someone and taking an iron and putting it on their forehead. Immediately, I'm like, I give up. I'll be good. I'm done. If this is the description, right? There are other descriptions in the hadith related to the Mi'raj, the hadith of the Mi'raj that the Prophet ﷺ tells us about. SubhanAllah. Like all the people of zina, and you see now that people have these insane parties of dozens of guys and girls all committing zina. What does Allah say about that? He says they will all be together with no clothes in an oven, roasting all together. It's like that image here that they're taking their shahawats and all their desires. Their next life they'll be in the oven. So what does it make you do? I'm not messing around, because this is not just a generic statement, you're going to be in trouble. I don't even know what that means. It's too generic. But when you see, subhanAllah, the vividness, that means this person's prepared things, right? You think about like when someone's vivid, they've prepared. They're ready. They have all sorts of things to punish you with. So I don't see punishment necessarily just as a meanness or like a bad thing. I actually see it as you're helping me. And when you see people in human beings in regular daily life, punishment is what makes them move. And it makes them move so quickly and so easily and not have to think twice about it. Now, they might hate you, no problem, but their behavior is fixed. The behavior is fixed. Countries that have very strict punishments, where they have strict punishments, they pretty much have stability. In the suburbs here, they're insane in terms of the traffic. You get caught on your phone, they're going to really make your life miserable. You're going to have points. You're going to have $500 fines, right? One moment on your phone. They catch you, $500 minimum. Then you have to argue the points to come off, right? Why this headache? So I just won't do it, right? So where they're lax on punishments, people do it. California's gone crazy, and they're extremely lax on theft. Even some people call this now protest shopping. Protesting the elite. So let's go steal from a poor Korean guy who's got a shop, right? How does that make sense, right? But now they also have minimum. The minimum allowed. There are signs saying what is the minimum you're allowed to steal before getting prosecuted, like $90 worth of stuff. What kind of junoon is this, right? Apple Store. If someone comes to steal, we take the customers and we all go inside the room until he's finished. What kind of junoon is this? This is insane, right? In our Sharia, what is the ruling if someone's stealing from you? His whole body becomes halal for you. If someone comes into my shop, let's say with a gun, if he's got a gun, it's over. I can shoot him if he's got a gun, right? Even if it turns out to be fake. Halal for me to shoot him. If he doesn't, I have a right to beat him. Did you guys all see the poor Indian guys who were getting robbed? Who were getting robbed by this big guy? And this other guy was like, listen, guys, you can't handle this guy. Let him take what he wants. And he had a mask on, ski mask, and a garbage pail. And he's just like emptying this guy's shelves. And this poor Indian guy is saying, oh, don't do it. And he's like, I'm not listening to you. And the guy's like recording it. And he's saying, don't even bother. You can't do anything against this guy. He's like 2 times your size. Until one guy goes to the back, gets the stick of a mop, takes it off the mop, and starts whacking his ankles with it. Like, he had courage. He beat the lights out of him. He beat the lights out of this guy, right? You're going to tell me now, according to most of our laws here in California and New York, the guy who protected his own shop is guilty for assault? It's ridiculous. So some of these laws are need to be revised. California needs to redo itself. It used to be the prettiest state. And now San Francisco's reputation is so bad. All because they don't apply any fear. Let's talk about another practical thing. Obama, if you look back, he also wanted to solve the illegal immigration problem in America. And I would say he was on the reasonable side of things. He's like, listen, we're all immigrants here, but it's not fair to the people who did it right for you to do it illegally. Also, you're not paying your way. You need to pay some taxes to pave these roads that you benefit from and the electricity that you take and all that public stuff that you benefit from in the public sphere. But the only problem, and he did say, come out in the open willingly. We'll put you on a track to being lawful. Now, the only thing missing in his ingredient was the motivation to do so. There was no stick. It was all carrot. There was no stick. There was nothing that made the person say, well, why would I willingly do this and then pay taxes on my money? Why would I willingly do this? You didn't scare me enough. So there needs to be stick and there needs to be carrot. And there has to be equal ingredients to both. قال الخوف على ضربين رهبة وخشية. Right? So he said, firstly, it's khawf, khashya, and hayba. So khawf, he said, is the condition of iman. Khashya is the next level up. You have awe with your creator. إنما يخشى الله من عباد العلماء. So khashya is the precondition or is the sign that you have knowledge. When you have khushu' regularly and khashya in your ibadah, that is the result of truly knowing who Allah is. And then lastly, you are in awe of the creator. You're in awe of him. And when you look at the khalq, you be in awe. Anybody who goes through these pictures of space, outer space, even like I was talking to some medical people and they were talking about the nature of the discs between the spines. They were like in awe. And you get to realize that some people's iman, its source is not religious studies, it's nature, studying nature. They were saying that the nature of this disc, it's like a flabby disc, right, that attracts fluid, but it doesn't take the fluid inside of it so that it doesn't become too mushy, but it attracts fluid all around it. And then it's wrapped up, crisscrossed together with these fibers to keep it together. And they were basically talking about the wonders of the disc that's between people's, like, in your back. You know, when people say they have a slipped disc, just talking about the disc and how amazing the disc is in taking pressure, handling pressure. And that when something bad happens, what holds the disc together snaps. And once that snapped, then your disc is slipping, and that's when you have a lot of pain. But the way they were talking about it, they were in awe of the creation of the disc that's in people's spine. Fire up an image of that just so that we can. Let's see. See that? Yeah. Get us a nice image. Yeah, that one's a good one. That blue up top left. Yeah, that one. Look at that. The anatomy of the spinal disc. That's where they see they're in awe of the one who made this, and that's amazing. That's what khashya is, and hayba, have hayba of the creator. Khawf is rahba and khashya. Ar-rahba is that when you're afraid, you run back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And khashya is non-stop. Non-stop. I don't want to disappoint my Lord. I never want to disappoint him. He has a standard. Okay. فإذا هرب انجذب في مقتضى هواه كالرهبان الذين اتبعوا أهواءهم فإذا كبحهم لجام العلم وقاموا بحق الشرع فهو خشية. All right, so why is it that some people's fear of Allah, it changes? He says that in the initial phase, where a person has strong desires, they flee hard the other way. They flee really hard the other way. But that khashya, it's actually unstable. That rahbah, it's motivated by desires, but you're fleeing your desires. So khashya, though, is more balanced. To have khashya of Allah Ta'ala is to have a balanced, but it's constant. It's more stable. It's not driven by fleeing from your desires. And that's why shabab, when they go into deen, they go in super hard. Because they know my desires are so magnetically or attracted to the other side. The only way to resist that is to flee hard the other side. And he calls that's a rahbah. But once you have a good control over your desires, then you have khashya. And you have a steady state of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at a steady level, at a consistent level. It doesn't need to go to extremes. And that's why shabab, when they go to extremes, there is a degree in which it's acceptable. But they just got to be pulled back eventually. But to a degree, it's acceptable. And this is where Ibn Ata'illah said, من لم تكن بدايته أو من كانت بدايته محرقة كانت نهايته مشرقة. So whoever his beginning is on fire, he's so full of zeal at the beginning, it's very hopeful that he's going to be illuminated at the end. His end will be illuminated. Why? He's only such a zahid because he knows I can't come near these desires. I got to use equal and opposite energy the other way. And as a result of that, he's able to control his desires. So that's the idea that sometimes youth, you'll see them more worshipful sometimes than their shuyukh. Sometimes you'll see a sheikh and the students or the youth around that sheikh, they have more ibadah than the sheikh himself. How does that happen? Again, because they are fleeing from desires. The sheikh has conquered his desires, so his ibadah is more steady. So when he goes to spend time with a guest, that's ibadah for him. That's what he's supposed to be doing. When he goes spend some time at home, he knows what he's able to do all these things. The youth would not be able to do it. They wouldn't be able to. They need to be going hard. That's it. Otherwise, they're going to be sucked back down into their ego's desires. Whereas an adult, a more veteran person, he can do a lot of things with his kids, with the youth of the masjid, and it won't affect him because he's more stabilized and strong. Yep.
Sheikh Muhammad Yasser, he recently tweeted actually
what he said.
Sheikh Muhammad Yasser,
Hanafi?
yeah.
What he said?
He made a nice tweet about this, like how he leads Tarawih, but then he feels embarrassed at seeing how the shabab, they come hours before to be like the first line.
Yeah.
So,
well, here's the thing. I mean, people who are veterans, and I've seen it with shuyukh, they have so much on their plate, but their ibadah is at such a high level is that every single thing they're doing is probably weightier than someone's individual ibadah. But it doesn't look like they're doing much, but they've made the intent. Like this is intended to benefit this person, and he knows exactly what he's doing, right? And he end up looking like he's doing less, but in fact he's doing more. Because he makes the intention behind the action. And that's the key. The key is the intent behind the action. And knowledge. Ibadah is not just me fleeing and reciting Quran. Well, what about other people who are suffering? Was not Sayyidina Dawood informed of this too? The great prophet of Allah, Dawood, fled upstairs to worship Allah in the mihrab when he then later admitted that people today, they're no good. The associates are no good. He understood the lesson right away. If they're no good, why are you doing this ibadah? Go out and teach them. Go out and spend time with them. Right? How is he going to spend time with them? You're going to spend time with them doing a lot of things, not just judging them and teaching them, but also sitting with them, talking with them, being invited in their homes, right? Eating with them, and all these other worldly things. But in fact, they're operating at a way higher level, right? He says here, continues. سمعت محمد بن حسين يقول سمعت عبد الله بن محمد الرازي يقول سمعت أبا عثمان يقول سمعت أبا حفص يقول الخوف سراج القلب به يبصر ما فيه من الخير والشر. It's only because of fear it initiates the desire of the heart, initiates the movement of the body. Fear initiates movement. And you start seeing what's good for you and what's bad for you because of fear. And Abu Ali al-Daqqaq said, الخوف ألا تعلل نفسك بعسى وسوف. Fear makes you avoid saying maybe and perhaps and in the future. We want to do it right now. Fear. Fear is what moves people to move quick. And when you want to do something, the first question you have to ask is, the first thing you have to do is you have to get this thing into existence. You have to get it into existence. Whenever we have a project, the number one thing I fear when we start a project, in the masjid or otherwise, is that we try to line up all the eggs together before we start the project. And in so doing, I think Shaitan has an entrance in that. He enters into that, and we all get up and the project hasn't started, right? And that, oh, wow. What an image by Omar. Fear and hope. You all see it today when he puts up the thumbnail. But the biggest fear is that the project doesn't even get launched. That's my biggest fear. So whenever we get into these, I say, okay, guys, you know what we're going to do? We have to start today. Let's just start it. Right?
How do you reconcile that with At-Ta'ni min ar-Rahman with Al-Azza min ash-Shaytan?
Okay. Where there's harm. Where there's harm. So when you're weak, when you're weak and you don't think the project will actually ever exist, you're better off starting it, even if it's no good, and improving it later. But if your azima is strong, if your intent is strong, and your ability to stay focused on it is strong, then it's probably better to think it through properly and then do it. But what I always fear is thinking too much and not doing it. And then we keep thinking and we don't do it. Nothing gets done. It drives me nuts, right? So I much rather start it. It's not good, but at least we have something to improve. It exists. Now we have to improve it or else it makes us look bad. And the other technique, and this is sometimes used to drive people in the masjid a little bit crazy, but they realize why it works. I announce it to the community, right? Just announce it, right? And what did you talk about? All right, I guess we have to talk about it now, right? Because we're on next month, right? The program is happening next month, so now we better do it. So that moves us, right? Just announce it, puts the pressure on. I'm sure if somebody did that to me, I'd go nuts, right? Let's, there's a lot more regarding this about al-khawf, but we said it's hope and it's fear and hope. So we have to skip the rest of the pages. We'll cover them later, and we'll read a little bit about hope, which everyone loves. من كان يرجو لقاء الله فإن أجل الله لآت. Whoever wishes to meet Allah, then the meeting of Allah is very close by, very near. Okay. قال دخلت على مالك ibn Dinar. I entered in upon Malik ibn Dinar, and I saw with him Shihr ibn Hawshab. When we exited, I said to Shihr, all right, tell me something, Allah will increase you. Okay. He said, yes, I'll tell you something. عن أبي الدرداء رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن جبريل عليه السلام قال قال ربكم عز وجل عبدي ما عبدتني ورجوتني ولم تشرك بي شيئا غفرت لك ما كان فيك. You worship me and you have hope in me and you don't take any partners alongside with me, I forgive all your sins. So when a person is hoping for something and he only seeks it from Allah, it's actually a source, an indicator of his iman. Allah forgives his sins. وَلَوْ اسْتَقْبَلْتَنِي بِمِلْءِ الْأَرْضِ خَطَايَا وَذُنُوبًا. If you come with the whole world full of sins, right, but you have hope in my forgiveness, then I will replace all those sins with forgiveness. So when you have hope in Allah, you're expressing tawheed. You're expressing his attribute of power. You're expressing so many things that are causes for you to be forgiven. أخرجوا من النار من كان في قلبه مثقال حبة شعير من إيمان. Remove from the fire the one who has iman, even if it is as small as the amount of a seed of a piece of wheat. Then Allah says, وَعِزَّتِي وَجَلَالِي لَا أَجْعَلُ مَنْ آمَنَ بِي سَاعَةً مِنْ لَيْلٍ أَوْ نَهَارٍ كَمَنْ لَمْ يُؤْمِنْ بِي. Someone who believes in me for an hour will not be on the day of judgment. In all his life, he believed in Allah for an hour. He will not be like those who never believed in him. He says, الرجاء تعلق القلب بمحبوب سيحصل في المستقبل. Hope, by definition, is the attachment of the heart to something that is loved that will happen in the future. كما أن الخوف يقع في المستقبل من الزمان فكذلك الرجاء يحصل لما يؤمل في المستقبل. So just as fear is of the future, hope is also of the future. والرجاء عيش القلوب واستقلالها. Hope, he said, is the life of hearts. If you don't have hope, you don't do anything. Like, why would you even show up to work? To have a productive day, to improve my life, to do better in the future. If I string together 1,000 of these good days, I'll make more money. That's hope. So without hope, you won't move. Famous story of Sayyidina Isa. I don't know if you can mention it here. He said, "Oh Allah, show me what it looks like when someone doesn't have hope. Remove the dunya from someone's heart. There's no hope in the dunya." So he was pointed to look at a farmer. The farmer was working. Then he stopped. Stared off into space a little bit. Then he put his tool down. And he went and sat under a tree. Then he said, "Oh Allah, show me what it looks like to put hope back in his life, in his heart." So he puts hope back in his heart. Suddenly, the man gets up, gets back to the hoe, and starts working. So he said, "Yeah, Abdullah, slave of Allah, tell me what happened. I was watching you. You worked, you stopped working, you sat under the tree, then you jumped up again and got ready, got to work again." He said, "I was working normally when suddenly a thought came to my mind. What is this all for? If it's all going to go, we're all going to die and it's all going to be gone. We eat the food, we go to the bathroom, we live, the house changes, we lose, our kids grow up, our grandkids don't even know who we are. You think about the last half of your most beloved kid, just your kids, right? The last half of their life, they don't even see you. They don't talk about you. They don't even mention you. You're dead, right? They're going to live the end of their life busy with their kids who you've never met. It's depressing. So I thought to myself, what is this all for? Nothing matters except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and meeting him on the day of judgment. So I went to sit under the tree to do a dhikr and make dua." He said, "Then what happened?" Because then you left that and you jumped up and you worked. Then he said, "I remembered that the prophets say the good deeds you do for others is better than the good deed you do for yourself." So I said, I could make dua all day, but I could also feed the poor with my farming. I could feed my family and intend it to be sadaqah. And I could build up this life intending it to be for the pleasure of Allah, and I will be rewarded for that on the day of judgment, and that might forgive all my sins. So I went back to work. So just because someone is thoroughly involved in the dunya, two people thoroughly involved in the dunya, one of them that work is a regret for him. It's going to end up in regret. The other, it ends up in happiness. Because he's doing it for the sake of the other world, the next world. And if that's the case, then work all day and all night. Then you're in ibadah in that sense. You're gaining in that sense. We're on the chapter of Ar-Raja here. قال شاه الكرماني علامة الرجاء حسن الطاعة. The sign that you actually have hope and you've attached your hope to Allah Ta'ala is you obey Him. There's no way possible that you want something from someone and then you disobey them. You anger them. It doesn't make any sense. You really truly want something from somebody, you're going to do what makes them happy at all times. Now he says, Ar-Raja Thalatha. Ibn Khubayk says, number one, a man does a good deed and he wishes that Allah accepts the good deed. Just because we did a good deed, maybe Allah will not accept it. If our heart wasn't in good intention, etc., if we were doing it to show off, then Allah won't accept it. وَرَجُلٌ عَمَلْ سَيِّئَةً ثُمَّ تَابَ فَهُوَ يَرْجُو مَغْفِرَةً. A man does a sin and he wants forgiveness. Third, الرجل الكاذب يتمادى في الذنوب يقول أرجو أرجو المغفرة ومن عرف نفسه بالإساءة ينبغي أن يكون خوفه غالبا على رجائه. He says الرجل الكاذب يتمادى في الذنوب. This is the false hope. Someone, he keeps saying, oh Allah, I want forgiveness. I want forgiveness. But you keep committing sins. You're not even trying. He says here that a person's fear should always slightly override your hope. Fear should be a little bit more than hope. He says, رؤية الجلال بعين الجمال. Hope is seeing Allah's power, right, as beauty. Seeing His power as beauty. That's hope. هو قرب القلب في ملاطفة الرب سبحانه. It's trying to draw your heart near to your Lord. So, other things, a lot more he says about hope here, but we're going to stop here for Q&A. Brothers and sisters looking on the English. So it's a chapter on hope, basically. There's a lot here. A lot of nice things. Let's look at this story. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, who's featured heavily in the Ramadan series coming up, he was fighting an enemy force, one of the enemies. Now, the enemy had a pagan religion, and the prayer time came for that prayer, for the enemy. So he asked for a break. He said, all right, let's take time out. He's got to go pray. And they worshiped the sun. They were animists. They worshiped the earth and the planets and stuff. So he's worshiping the sun. The guy goes and starts praying. And Ibn Mubarak is waiting, and he says, this is a great time for me to just kill him right now. Right? I don't have to accept this. This is war. But he thought to himself, he heard a saying from the sky. He heard a voice saying, وَأَوْفُوا بِالْعَهْدِ إِنَّ الْعَهْدَ كَانَ مَسْئُولًا. Keep your word. You're going to be asked about it. Even in this. So he didn't kill him. The Majusi, the Ilj and the Majus, they're Persians. This Majusi, he came back and he says, you could have killed me. Why didn't you? Right? He told him, says, SubhanAllah, I was going to kill you. You're right. But I heard a voice recite to me a verse of Quran. Keep to your word. You're going to be asked about your word. The Majusi says, نِعْمَ الرَّبُّ رَبٌّ يُعَاتِبُ وَلِيَّهُ فِي عَدُوِّهِ. This is a good Lord, the Lord that corrects his lofty worshippers, because Abdullah Mubarak was that. And the Majusi entered Islam and became a disciple for Abdullah ibn Mubarak. Would have been good for the Ramadan series, right?
It's crazy how they have conversations of war back in the day.
Oh, it was funny. It was funny how war was almost like, because there's two types of war in history, they say. There's the civilized war. Yeah. The civilized war is when two nations, they know what they're doing. They understand the nature of war. They're at it all the time. And so there are limits in such a war. And then there's absolute war. absolute wars, people who are actually ignorant, they don't rule, they don't understand, and they literally destroy a civilization. So the Arabs were actually have some hilarious stories about this, is that there would be a feud between two tribes in Jahiliyyah before Islam, and they would fight. They would actually fight and be hurting each other, having war. Then at nighttime, the tribe that was hosting would send them food, right?
Even during like the fitna, the battle of Jamal.
Yeah.
Like didn't they all like pray together?
Yeah, that was more like a skirmish. Yeah.
Or like the one with
Even
yeah.
when Sayyidina Hussain was being trapped, the cops, the local police force, the low level, before Shimr got there. Shimr is the bad guy. He's the real one. But first, the one who got there was, what was his name? Hur was the local cop. And he was ordered, don't let Hussain leave, past this bar. So he's like somebody who's just put up cones, basically. I can't pass here. His name was Hur. And they said, I'm under orders. I know you're righteous and I know you're good people, but I'm under orders. And he wouldn't let them pass. But when it came time to pray, he prayed behind them. He prayed salah behind them, right? Then when it escalated, this got to the point that, oh, wait, like the army's coming and they're surrounding them and they're blocking off their water. Whoa. Hur said, I didn't expect this. I didn't know I was part of this, right? This I didn't know. He went and joined Hussein's side and he died. That morning, it was still dark out. They saw a shaking figure coming. He said, it's coming from the enemy side. This is not someone who's going to kill. This person's shaking. Who is it? It's Hur. The first person who was sent to go and stop them from moving. It's Hur. And Hussein said, what is it? He said, it's heaven and hell. Hur said, it's heaven and hell. Because I know what they're about to do. So I have the choice of either being part of this and joining them and going to hell, or to come to you, seek your forgiveness, and I tell you, I had no knowledge it would escalate to this level. And I will join with you and I'll die with you. Because we all know we're going to die. There's like a whole army with 72 people. So Hussein forgave him. And he joined them. And Hussein shut off the lamp because it's still the sun hadn't come up. And he said, today, every one of us will die. Whosoever wants to leave, leave now with my permission and my full blessing. You go live your life. You don't have to die with me on this. He shut the lamp off so that no one would be embarrassed. Nobody got up. Then they all died except for Ali ibn al-Hussein. Ali Zain al-Abidin, Sayyidina Hussein's only son, is Ali, nicknamed Zain al-Abidin. Later on, the best of worshippers, son of Hussein. And that's because he was sick. So he never entered the battlefield. That's a wisdom. Because he's the only lineage from al-Hussein. From then on, the Hussein, Sayyidina Ali Zain al-Abidin begot Muhammad al-Baqir. Muhammad al-Baqir. Al-Baqir means someone who can cleave things open. So the Al-Baqir is actually a nickname given by the Prophet ﷺ. This is one of the prophecies, saying that I will have a grandson. Don't quote me on it, but we can find the hadith for it. I'll have a grandson named Muhammad, and he will be a Baqir of knowledge. So the Muhammad al-Baqir became named that when the Sahabi who heard that hadith said, you must be the one the Prophet was speaking about. Thank you. Can you look that up, that author?
He said, say salam's my grandson.
Yes. Subhanallah. Omar is going to pull it up. And that's Muhammad al-Baqir. And Muhammad al-Baqir, he interacted with Sayyidina al-Imam Abu Hanifa in Nu'man. Sayyidina Imam Abu Hanifa, when there was a fitna, in Iraq, he came down and he lived 2 years in Medina. And his interaction was with Muhammad al-Baqir. Muhammad al-Baqir, then he had another son that was Ja'far al-Sadiq. Ja'far al-Sadiq was the Sheikh of Malik ibn Anas. Some people say, why doesn't Malik ever narrate from Ja'far as-Sadiq? I asked my sheikh that himself, Mahmoud Shabib. He said, what kind of ignorant person says this? Malik took all his fiqh from him. Right? Malik took and he said Ja'far was not a narrator in the first place, but Malik took his fiqh from Ja'far as-Sadiq. Malik took everything that Ja'far as-Sadiq had and it took it for himself. Right? In other words, as a student, he soaked all of Ja'far's knowledge. And Malik explicitly states that he learned how to honor the Prophet from Ja'far as-Sadiq. And when they say Malik had special ways when the Prophet's name was mentioned, special conditions for the majlis of hadith. Majlis of fiqh was different. They would talk. Majlis of hadith, no, things are going to be different now. There's going to be change of clothes. There's going to be bukhur put. There's going to be full tahara. There's going to be silence. This is hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Where did he learn all this? Malik tells us himself. He learned it all from Ja'far as-Sadiq. It says he learned that Ja'far as-Sadiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when he said he was a mazzah. He always used to joke. He would love to make people laugh and smile. Until the name of the messenger was mentioned, then his face changed. Right? So the general honoring of the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam physically with your body, he learned it from Ja'far as-Sadiq. Nothing that Malik brought is his own original thought. None of it. Not one piece of Malik's madhab is his original thought. There is no origination in the deen. It's the religion of transmission. The usul of Malik is transmitted to him. He had Ibn Hurmuz was his teacher in Aqidah and taught him about the deviant sects. And sometimes people try to make Malik to not be a munazzih when all of Malik's narrations are tanzihi, the transcendence of the Creator. Even he says, "Inna Allah la yazul." Allah does not go from one place to another place. Like when Allah comes down the last third of the night, the tanzihi statements of Malik are so many. Okay, because I recently saw a little clip of a guy trying to make Malik as if he's like he doesn't do this. No, it's the opposite. Inna Allah la yazul, right? Doesn't go from place to place. His amal of Ahl al-Medina, he learned it as a youth from Rabi'atul Ra'i, when he did what many people say, many people do. He said, Ya Rabi'a, teacher, why do you rule with this fatwa when there's a hadith that says the opposite? And that's when Rabi'a says, Alfun al-alf ahabu ilay min wahid an wahid. 1,000 from 1,000, transmitting from 1,000, is stronger and more reliable in my eyes, more beloved to me than one narration from another person. In other words, if all the scholars of Medina are doing something, that's the sunnah, because they're only 2 generations off from the Prophet, peace be upon him. And some other teachers 1 generation off from the Sahaba themselves, study from the Sahaba. So that's better than one narration which we have no other context around it. We didn't see anyone practicing it. Yeah. Amal Ahl al-Medina is not even the idea of Rabi'atul Ra'i, it's Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab says when somebody comes from these outside cities with a narration, measure it against our action. We know the sunnah. So you may have a hadith that was partial of a hadith, has conditions that you didn't know about, or it was abrogated or something. So measure it against ours. So even Amal Ahl al-Medina is Umar's concept. So that's Ali Zain Abdin and Hussain. Ja'far as-Sadiq, he had 2 sons. He had Musa al-Kadhim, and then the brother of Musa al-Kadhim is the progenitor of our beloved Alawis. And that, if I'm not mistaken, is Ali al-Uraydi, because he lived in an area called Urayd. And Musa al-Kadhim was far older than him and was almost like a father to him. And from Ali al-Uraydi comes the lineage of Ahl al-Bayt, the Ba'alawi Sayyids. Read. Is your mic on?
So the Al-Thawab, it's all like Shia websites, so I can't find like a Sunni.
Sometimes Shia websites,
But the sourcing is from Shia books, so.
sometimes they source it to Sunni books too. Well, take the wording and put it back into Shamila or something.
Yeah, it's all still popping up as like Shia.
Yeah.
But it seems like Jabir ibn Abdullah was the one that.
Yeah, look it up. Or look it up in that other hadith site. What is it called?
It's not coming up in that either. But I've heard this definitely.
Yeah. Let's stop here. We got to take some Q&A before the users, they get upset. The people on the stream, they get upset if their questions aren't answered. All right, we don't want to upset them. What is your advice on rizq? Try to get as much of it as you need. I'm working for 2 years now on my company, but not getting any results, says Tanzil Khan. Do you have a mentor? Do you have a business coach? You need these things. Trust me, you need these things. I got one. We have that meeting Sunday, and then we're going to go up to meet them, right? People, if you want, you cannot be a winner by yourself. You have to hang out with winners. You got to hang out with winners. You want to be a winner? Go hang out with winners, right? You got to, you know, talaqqi, transmission. It's transmitted. Certain things are transmitted. Yes, you may have a genetic knack for certain things, but things are transmitted. If we want to be winners, we got to hang out with winners. There's a culture for winners. They know the culture of a company that's going to be great, of a person who's going to be great, of an organization that's going to be, of a team who's going to be great. And most of us, we learn this stuff from sports. It's like an artificial teacher of these things. That's the only real benefit of that. Okay. Real benefit of sports is to learn how to work as a team, how to overcome things, that kind of thing. Does making tawbah, not istighfar, remove obstacles from du'a's acceptance? Yes, it does. But what do you mean by tawbah, not istighfar? Tawbah and istighfar should be one and the same. They must be. You can't make tawbah but refuse to say astaghfirullah. And you can't make istighfar and not intend it in your heart. So tawbah and istighfar is the word, and tawbah is the state. Juan Carlos says, are there spots available for the March 15th to 13th to 23rd trip? Yes, it is. And you can go, inshallah. Go to buraktravel.co. Yeah, go to their website and see if those 10 spots are still open. I don't know. Witnessing evil jinn possession in Ramadan. Nah, I'm not the right person for this. I don't know about this stuff. Don't pull me into these. Then I offend the wrong jinn. Yep. That's what my sheikh said in Mecca. Sheikh Sidi, Sheikh Abdurrahman Wild Sidi Muhammad. I wonder where he's been. I haven't seen him in over 20 years. But in Mecca, I would go pray Maghrib. Pray Maghrib at Sayyid Muhammad ibn Alawis Maliki's house. His halta, his courtyard, basically. It was a closed thing, but there's an open area and a closed little masjid area. That was open to the public. But like you had to knock and have an appointment. But anyone could go. His family wasn't ever there. His family lived somewhere else. On the same compound. Huge compound. So this open area, you go some trees, a courtyard basically. Gated, of course. And then there's like the little masjid. And then you go there and you wait. He comes out when he comes out, if he wants to come out, right? And he'll be with whoever's the guests are there. But his habit was to come out between Maghrib and Isha. Isha comes, you leave. So Maghrib comes, you pray. The tea, some food, and then he'll see one guest after the other. He'll talk to all the guests. He'll have some munshid sing some qasidas, some shabab recite some awrad. And then he'll sit and talk. And the way it was with me was that I would come up to him for a few minutes. He said, all right, which book did you read? This is the book. I'll look at this chapter, go to this, highlight that. This is the most important part, right? Things like that. And then he see other people have other questions, right? After Isha, you take the cab back down to the Haram. There, the Shanaqita, they arrive in a van. Big, a lot of Mauritanians. They all arrive, and they have a certain spot. And this is back in the day where it was like summer. Haram was like empty almost. It's insane. And today you can't even go if you're not wearing a haram. No, there you can go easily without haram back in the day. And so they would all sit there, and I had 2 lessons in a row. fiqh with Sheikh Abdurrahman Wild Sidi Muhammad. And then Lugha with Abdul Aziz al-Mali, Ajrumiyah. And the Sharh of Ajrumiyah with Abdul Aziz al-Mali. So I would take Risalat ibn Abi Zayd with Sheikh Abdurrahman Wild Sidi Muhammad. Now, Sheikh Abdurrahman Wild Sidi Muhammad, his dad was an old man, used to wear the Mauritanian garb, and they would pray nafila the whole time. And they'd bring coffee and dates and all that stuff. Now, Sheikh Abdurrahman Wild Sidi Muhammad told me a scary story. He said that his uncle, his dad's brother, was the best raqi in all of Shinqit. The jinn, he would totally defeat them one after the other, after the other, after the other. And he would recite on his family every day long, huge recitations for protection. It's as if when you like, let's say you work in the mob and you have a fight with another mob family, your kids can't walk around the city. Their kids have to be guarded, right? So what happened was the family grew. And he said they could never attack our household. Our household was fortified by the Adhkar. He said, so they attacked his grandson. His daughter had a son, and of course his daughter went to live with the tribe of her husband. They attacked the grandson, and they made him paralyzed. Right? So he said from then on, he put up the white flag. Right? I'm never doing Ruqya again. And he never messed with jinn again. And he swore for all his family, do not ever enter the war. It's like pulling out of the mafia. Khalas, I'm out. I'm done with this war. And he swore for his family, and they never get involved with jinn again. That was my, once I heard that policy, and I heard it from him, I said, all right, I'm out of it too. I'm not even in it, but I'll never get in it. I'll never get in it. He said, do not get in this world. Okay? Yes, it may be fard kifaya for some people, not for you. Right? Do not get in. And I never forgot that, because he said, yeah, you can protect yourself. You can protect your household. What happens when your family gets big? Right? Don't mess around with jinn. Jinn stories, we can tell back and forth, but messing with jinn and trying to get jinn out of people, no.
Mauritania seems like a playground for them. The Sheikh Muhammad has a lot of stories.
So much. Because they're living in the open space. Their hearts are seeming like clear, and they seem to live with the unseen. It's the weirdest thing. So I don't know. I need advice. If a man follows a lot of women online, says Amna, including those who post provocative content, is it likely that he struggles with lowering his gaze even within the context of marriage? I mean, if he's publicly following this publicly, then it seems that he has a bad habit. So maybe you should. I mean, I know for sure if a guy proposed, you have a daughter, a guy proposes to your daughter, then you say, okay, let me do my due diligence. Let me go and look at his Instagram follow. It says following and followers. Let me see who he's following, right? And then you see Facet. There's not going to be a second meeting. Khalas, it's done for you. You're not even embarrassed about it. You're not embarrassed. So, khalas. How soon after Haid does a woman have to make ghusl? She must make ghusl before the next prayer, because she has to pray, or before missing the prayer that is due for her. So let's say you have dhuhr, and then you have asr, and you have Haid all morning. Now you have tahara. You have to make ghusl in order to pray dhuhr on time. Okay. A bunch of people here going to ISNA. Do we even have a poster for ISNA Canada, which apparently and allegedly is nothing connected to ISNA in America? Did you know about this? ISNA Canada is not the branch of ISNA USA. Right. Huh? Yeah. But what, were they once a branch and they broke off, or what? Shadee. But I'm really looking forward to this trip in Toronto. I don't know what I'm going to see in Toronto, because it's like airport, program, airport. It's like one of those things. Ridgeway Plaza. They're probably gonna have that plaza is probably open all night, right? And even Zuhd probably. Which who's chai though? There's so many. You went, Omar? With who? You went with the Ghazali Club?
No,
Oh, okay. Because you know the Ghazali Club went. Yeah. You know the brothers in Thobes and studying Hanafi fiqh and Abu Hamid al-Ghazali? They went just to see Ridgeway and eat. What Ghazali Club is this? This is feeding the two desires, not breaking the two desires. Imam al-Ghazali wrote a book called Breaking the Two Desires. I told you guys write the book for feeding the two desires, increasing the two desires. A very un-Ghazali-ish thing to do. Here's a question from Sammy. He says, is it possible for a man to have qualities of a good father but qualities of a bad husband? I'm sure people can be mixed. People can be mixed, of course. Being a husband is a total different subject than being a dad. A total different subject than being a son. Total different subject of being an employee. Total different subject of being a boss. So, Jay Perez says, you skipped my question. Tayyip, we'll go back. I told you, they're ruthless if you skip the questions. Here it is. When and how can the brother take over as his sister's wali when the father keeps delaying the nikah and is lackadaisical in making it happen? Now the daughter is frustrated and wants to avoid fitna. Such a decision, you want to get the other elders in your family involved? And it's reasonable. If the dad is not really facilitating this, and that's not right, so you can probably get the advice of the imam, the uncles, her mom, obviously, and say, listen, our pops is not doing this right, and the girl's missing out, and her window's closing. You know, that famous window that people always talk about. Then you can, yes, because if he's not doing his job, but the thing is, anything that's a judgment, don't just rely on your judgment. Try to get a little bit of a shura, where the mom agrees, the grandpa agrees, the other uncles agree that the dad's not doing a good job. Then you could take over. Did Umar the Sahabi made up the Taraweeh prayer? Sayyidina Umar did not invent the Taraweeh prayer, but Sayyidina Umar is the one who approved. He approved. He is not the one who gathered them in a jama'at. They were all praying loudly, individually. Then they couldn't really hear. So one of the Sahaba gathered them in one jama'at prayer for Taraweeh. And then Umar ibn Khattab came and approved of it. Okay, let's take a look at this question. A convert friend, this is from Kwandil, a convert friend who is very spiritual has started leading Reiki healing sessions. Which spirituality is this? This is a different kind of spirituality. And these things are rooted in Buddhism. Is this permissible in Islam? First of all, we have to have a definition for Reiki. Reiki it's the belief that you can harness energies that can remove I think it's like inflammation from people. Look it up. Reiki. I don't necessarily see anything forbidden. Yeah. It could, maximum you could say is pseudoscience, right? Maximum you can say about it is that it's pseudoscience. But can we say that something is forbidden? Can't say it's forbidden, let alone shirk at all. But if you believe that you can ease people's pains or your own pain by harnessing the universal life force of chi, which is basically a transfer of energy from themselves to the client. So a no-touch massage, basically, right? Masseuse been wasting their energy. What's that? It is Hindus and Buddhists doing it, but I mean, who's doing Tylenol? A bunch of atheists too, right? So who's inventing that stuff? But we just have to judge it for what it is. Okay. It's an attempt to heal pain by claiming to transfer energy from themselves to the client. Okay. Well, so that in itself, we cannot say that there's no forbidden act. The only forbidden act if she's a female and you're a male. And then you're laying down on the table and she's putting her hands very close to you and her body's close to you. That's the only thing I can think of. But as for, is it science? It's an attempt. They have to prove it in some way, shape, and form. Other than that, society will hold it to be pseudoscience. Right? Okay, what about charging for it? Could it be أخذ أموال الناس بالباطل? It could be, right? Could it be that you're taking people's wealth without offering a objective benefit? Yes, it could be, 100%, right? Because there are asbab that are known. And there are attempts to get to ends, and you're sort of trying to get there. So taking money for it should be questionable. Because at that point, it's أخذ أموال الناس بالباطل, right? Are they saying prayers? No. Are they having any beliefs that contradict Islam? So far, I don't see anything like that. What they call the energy, they call it chi. That's not anything in itself that I see. So it is I would have to classify it, agree with the Wikipedia entry here, as a pseudoscience. Pseudoscience doesn't mean people are trying to lie to you. It doesn't mean jinn. It doesn't mean shirk. It simply means that they haven't done the requisite experimentation, double blind, whatever they call it, to show that this works regularly. It follows hukm adi, like Tylenol, like Excedrin, like slow-release caffeine pills, like coffee, like food. That stuff is like pretty much like we know it's going to work. Mujarrab. That's not really the right term for it, but we know it's going to work.
So what's that perspective of energy when they talk about energy?
It's a claim of some. It's a claim. It's a claim that something emits, and if I have a really bad headache and a guy says, "Hey, I can harness the energy," right? I'm gonna say, "Try." I'm not paying you though, because I don't know if this is real science or not. Another guy says, "I have 2 Excedrins." I'll pay him, right? Because I know that works. That's halal transaction right there. I know that works. The question here, I think I don't see shirk in this, nor prohibition. You're attempting to solve a problem. That's it. No other beliefs involved. But can you take money for it is the question. And that's where I think it's akl amwal an-nas bil batil. And now, if you've proven that it works, publish it. It should be in a double-blind experiment. Even, the double-blind, a lot of actual medicines fail. The whatchamacallit, the fake medicine, the placebo, succeeds just as much as the other one. So
the main issue, I guess, would be the huwa muda'a here, as a lot of these issues.
Mhm.
Like, are you saying that these things are in and of themselves healing you?
Well, yeah, we should even take that to people who use regular science and regular medicine. Yeah. The issue of al-quwwatul muda'a is that, do you believe that in the sabab as the source of power? If that's the case, then we have to apply that to everyone. People who take Excedrin for headaches, right, or drink coffee to feel alert, they're the first people who need to ask themselves, how much are they invested in the asbab, or they believe it's just a means to an end? So that's a whole nother subject. That applies to everybody. Everyone who uses a means has to remind themselves that this is just a means, and Allah can create the same end without it. Everyone has to observe that. But is it a bunch of Buddhist pseudo-nonsense? Yeah, probably, right? Otherwise, publish a report, right? I'll tell you why they're not going to publish a report. You can't sell it, right? You can't put it in a bottle and sell it while you're sleeping. It's something that requires a human to do, right? That's why there's no Big Pharma and J&J is not trying to publish anything about Reiki because it's not something that could ever be a product. And by the way, J&J are they're the best of all these pharmaceuticals. Like, they have a huge wing for philanthropy. When you die, does the shroud have to be white? It should be white as a sunnah, but it doesn't have to be white. It could be anything. And it could be a thought. You could bury someone in this, but you just end up have to cover his face. Pants and a shirt could be sufficient. You just have to cover their aura completely and cover their face as well. But the sunnah is to be white. How do I calculate qada prayers if I don't remember how much I missed? So you have to overestimate. So is it 10 years? Maybe. Is it 8 years? No, it's definitely more than 8 years. Is it 15 years? No, it's definitely less than that. 12 years? No, it's not 12 years. 11 years? Maybe. All right, so 12 years. So if it's 2025, from today until 2037, you pray every salah twice. That's how you make up your qada. And you don't pray nafl. How do we reconcile the fact that our dua are always answered with asking pious scholars to pray for us because their duas are more likely to be answered? What's the what am I reconciling? What am I reconciling here? I'll ask for clarification. Yes.
Could you explain the state of tawakkul in detail?
Tawakkul, this is a good question. And it's closely related to imperfect subjects question, which when rizq is from Allah, why should I work? Tawakkul comes after one has done tasabbub. Tasabbub, taking the means. When I've taken all the means that I can, then it begins to my tawakkul. Khalas, I put my hands up. I say, I've done every single thing I could possibly do. Now I leave it to Allah. Now, tawakkul that is incorrect is to swap it now. Is to rely upon Allah without taking the means. So what we're supposed to do is tasabbub. Take the means. Take all the means. Then, after we take the means, then we leave it. Right? And Allah, we leave it to Allah. That's tawakkul. Tawakkul comes also when people have no means. They have no means.
How do you determine what, like, so it's like input, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
how much input and how much work we have to put in to
Yeah.
to get a result
Mhm.
from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, essentially. How, and then let's say you're putting in work
Mhm.
for a certain thing consistently for a certain period of time. As human beings, there's always room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And taking that factor into account, when is it you realize maybe this isn't it? Like this, you keep getting blocks,
When you don't want it anymore,
but you still do want it.
do you keep going? Try different things. You keep wiggling, try different things. If you want it, you keep going.
So it sounds like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving you a sign that this is not.
No. No.
If it's in your heart still, you keep going.
Yeah. The way that Allah Ta'ala gives you a sign that something is not for you is it becomes literally impossible. Oh Allah, let my grandma live to see the next Eid. Then she dies. Well, it's literally impossible. Right? Yeah. Like, there's literally no way.
I think with Shaykh al-Bulti, he would mention this, but like, it was a good point. Like, the people that want to skip the asbab, like, this is bad adab with Allah.
That's bad adab, yeah. Allah created these asbab are for our benefit. Kinetic Nomad says Reiki involves shirk in its practices with all that belief in crystals. Again, crystals, like, let's say, what's the belief in crystals? That crystals will, for example, heal your joints, right? Okay. Again, we're allowed to try new things to cure ourselves. When we find a cause and effect that repeats enough times, we call that science. And it becomes a legitimate sabab. When the cause and effect is near to 100 out of 100, then it may be necessary for us to take it. Such as Abu Hamid al-Ghazali has a chapter on that, Ihya Ulumuddin. We studied that in Tarim, where water, will quench your thirst. If you're dying of thirst, you have to drink, right? It becomes obligatory. Then he goes on and he says that there are asbab that are dhanni, Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And there are asbab that are wahmi. We have no clue. So we are allowed to attempt to find new solutions to problems. And usually the new solution begins as merely a whim, a guess, but it should, if as long as it stays there, then we have no obligation. But it is permitted to try it. It's permitted to try it. It's just not permitted to sell it. So if I have a pain in my joint, and somebody says, "Hey, listen, if you wear this rock bracelet, it's going to benefit you," I'm allowed to try that, right? All medicine, whether what works 100% and what is a whim, I believe is from Allah. This is all asbab. You understand the difference? Is that just because something is done by weirdos does not necessarily mean that in the future we can't find out that it actually works as real medicine. You see? So for that stuff, they just need to publish on it. But we are allowed to try, but we shouldn't have now beliefs about crystals and stuff like that. When people take it and treat it as if it's an absolute, then that's just epistemologically wrong, because it's clearly not an absolute. It's clearly just some people trying to find something that cures their arthritis or whatever. What dua can we make for our kids to do better in school and develop a love of a deen? To that dua, which in Surah, I believe, Al-Hujurat, Allahumma habib ilayna al-iman wa zayyinhu fi qulubina. It's based on Hujurat. وَكَرِّهْ إِلَيْنَا الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ. So look that up. Is it makruh to befriend an atheist, since disbeliever benefit from hanging out with believer? Believer doesn't benefit hanging out with disbeliever. From Adam Bawamia. You don't befriend anyone who can rub off on you. If you're rubbing off on them, fine. But if they start rubbing off on you, then the harm is there. Is the dominant view in the Maliki school global site? Oh, I didn't get the answer to that yet. I'll get you the answer. 2 more questions, then we wrap up. What about the 7 lata'if? No knowledge of it. You have to go ask a Naqshbandi. I have no knowledge of that. Can we use soap and ghusl? Yes, you can use soap and ghusl, but the ghusl will have to be with pure water. So at some point, pure water will have had to come upon you. How would you advise to calculate zakat? That's a big question, but I'll give you the quick summary of it, and then maybe we can cover it in full later. The quick summary is that you're going to go to your bank accounts that always have money in them. And from this Ramadan to last Ramadan, what was the lowest that bank account reached? Let's say you have in your bank account right now 50 million. Okay? You think that's not possible? It's easily possible. 50 million bucks. But that 50 million came from month 3. It grew, right? Before that, I had actually went down to 0. Between Ramadan, this last Ramadan and this Ramadan, I actually hit 0. No zakah, even if there's 50 million in the account, right? Meanwhile, another guy, he's got $12,000 in his account, and he's had $12,000 the whole time. He owes zakat on $12,000. So the guy with $12,000 in his account, he owes zakat. The guy with $50 million does not owe zakat. Why? How does that seem fair? Because the guy with $50 million is moving his money. That's the goal. The guy with 12,000, he's keeping it solid, stagnant. So the zakah is one of the ilal for it is movement of the money. The guy went from 0 to 50 million. It's because he's moving his money. Put all of it in this investment. Loan it to this person. And then slowly his investments benefit. His angel loans get paid back. He's back at 50 million. So he benefited the society. Whereas the guy with 12,000 did not benefit the society. So now he has to benefit the society. So now let's say $12,000 and pays zakat on $12,000. All right, do I owe anybody money? Yeah, well, I owe my monthly bills. All my monthly bills. That's a debt. The phone company is asking you to pay this month. They're not asking you to pay next month, right? The mortgage company is asking you to pay this month. They're not asking you to pay next month. So the monthly bills for all the institutions that I'm paying, Rutgers University, whatever school, car, etc. Count all those. All right, that it's $5,000 worth of debt. All right, so 12,000 minus 5,000. That's $7,000 worth of zakah. All right, next question. Do you have any personal debts outstanding? Yeah. I owe my grandpa $20,000. He lent me $20,000 to get a car. And he said, you pay me back when you can. Right? All right. 27,000 of zakah minus 20,000, negative $13,000. We'll be paying you zakah soon, right? So he doesn't have to pay zakah. So it's the stagnant amount minus debts equals the zakatable amount. You are actually eligible for $13,000 worth of zakah because debts is zakatable. Huh?
He's actually awla because
yep.
He's in a worse state than simply poor.
Yep. He's negative money. The simply poor person is at zero. He's negative.
So when you said the debt monthly, that's the immediate month or the month for the year?
So institutional debts that are
For example, school fees
school fees, that's a debt. I owe them, right?
for the year?
No, for this month.
Just that month?
For this month, yeah. I owe them for this month.
How do you request zakah?
Huh?
How do you request for zakah?
You request from zakah in different masajid. You go and apply. Because usually masajid are the ones who collect zakah. Right? Technically, there's nothing stopping a person from going to somebody who pulls up in the masjid in a nice car and say, hey, I need zakah. Right? But how does he trust you? How does he know? You know that we have had scams. You know, zakah scams is a theme this year in our group. So many scams. Scams, I'm telling you, like mafia level scams. I'm talking about printing death certificates. Fake death certificates. We're talking about fake reports of fire, like fire reports. They're faking them. They're printing them out. I don't know what they're doing. And they're going to different masajid. And they're saying, hey, I'm actually okay, but I'm just got to tell you that my apartment just burned down. Right? I just need a help. Just give me a hand for $1,000 to get me through this month. All right. Here's a report. Apartment burnt, blah, blah, blah. All right. Give them zakah. Turns out it's a scam. Right? The guy's going around to all the masajid, collect $10,000. Right? So there's a lot of scams.
Is there a maximum you could request?
No. You can get as much zakah money as until that you no longer zakah eligible. That's the max. Until you're no longer zakah eligible. So there's also nothing wrong, and it's actually maybe obligatory. If there are so many scams, we're only giving zakah to the poor that we know. Right? And it's also permitted for the wakil to distribute the zakah over time. So let's say the masjid receives $300,000 worth of zakah in Ramadan. They can give $300,000 out to the people now, or they could say, okay, this person is in need. We'll give him $3,000 a month. So we're going to give him 36K, but we're going to give him 3 every month. So he could space it out. Because anyway, if we give him 36 right away, after 5, he's no longer zakah eligible, right? So we'll give him 3 a month. You can do that. Now, what else can you not do? You can't say, all right, send me your car bill. We'll pay your car bill. No, you can't do that. What are you, his parent now? Because he's poor. He needs a parent? That's lording over the poor as if they're fools. Not allowed to do that. Right? I remember one time a woman took zakah in a community, and next day her son was seen wearing Jordans. Uproar in the community. Right? We're giving zakah to buy sneakers? No, we're giving you zakah to buy bread. Well, so she's got to be at that level of poverty and have no other desire except bread and water? That's not right either. No, if the poor person says to themselves, I got $100, I could eat food I could buy groceries for 3 weeks, and then after 3 weeks we have no food anymore. Or I could buy my son a nice pair of shoes, and he can feel good about himself in school for a year. I'll buy him the shoes, right? It's her choice. It's her right. If she receives her $100 and she says, I want to actually go to a steakhouse and take my kid to a steakhouse and we're going to eat for $50 each, rather than going and buying ramen, right, for the next month, that's her right. Leave her alone. They can do what they want with the zakat money.
So does that mean if you have to distribute zakat to someone, it shouldn't be more than the nisab? Or could you give them like, so if the nisab is 5,000?
You give them what fulfills their need. What's beyond their need, they're no longer zakat eligible. What fulfills their need. He may have a debt of 15,000. He needs 15K, right? So, yeah. Huh?
They get that much kind of money?
Message 300,000, 500,000. Yeah, they get a lot of zakat. There's a lot of people who pay zakat. Yeah. Is someone talib ilm eligible if he's not working? No, not like the Jews where the guy can just study and take zakah. In our masjid, we prioritize the widows and orphans and the disabled. But if a guy has arms and legs, he's probably not seeing money, right? If he's got arms and legs. Our zakat distributor, he's no nonsense. He tells him, do you have arms and legs? Do they work? So we all work. We go to New Brunswick. The guy with no English, no papers works, right? He goes out there in front of Walgreens. Someone picks him up. He paints a wall for 8 hours. He comes back. He gathers leaves. He comes back. And we see it. So if he's doing it, why can't you do it, right?
Also doesn't set them up for the future as well.
No, it doesn't.
Have to be in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can we work very little if rizq is from Allah? No. The Prophet ﷺ commanded us to take the asbab, and we have to be, when you work, there's a right way to work and a wrong way to work. Here's the wrong way to work. Sleep in. You will always be poor. The right way to work. Pray Fajr, work for the next 2 hours. Then it doesn't make a difference if you take a nap or not. If you are up at that hour, Allah will bless your work. And you'll get better and better and better and better and better. That's the sacred hour right there. Fajr until Ishraq. Doesn't make a difference, 20 minutes. It's only not even 2 hours. Let's look at it right now.
It's from like 5 to 7.
It's from Fajr comes in at, depends if you're 18 degree or whatever, but forget that. The subject right now. 5 o'clock Fajr. 6:23 sunrise. Therefore, Ishraq is what? Plus 20 minutes. Takes 6:40. Let's say 7 o'clock. That's it. Firstly, most people don't pray Fajr in the regular year. They don't pray Fajr when it comes in. They'll pray halfway through. All the 6 o'clock, let's say. 20 minutes before or 30 minutes before. So that eliminates 1 hour right there. So we're talking about that hour right there is the most important hour to be awake. If you take a nap after that, it does make a difference. But that's the hour.
You have to be awake and like doing like deen work, or you can do like deen stuff. Let's call it stuff in that 1 hour post Fajr.
Up to Ishraq, either or. After Ishraq, work. Work. Dunya work, yeah. And there is a psychology behind it too. When I look at my phone and I see a text message sent from someone at 5:30 a.m. and I read it at 9 a.m., something deep down it says, he beat me today, right? What was I doing, right? He's up at 5:30. It's not psychology, it's fitrah. Allah put it there, right? You get up, you shoot out a whole bunch of texts and messages, and you do some work, and you're in everyone's inbox by 5 a.m. By 5:30 a.m., whoa, this guy's on fire, right? And I'm like way behind. You start feeling crummy about yourself, right? Start feeling depressed about yourself. I'm telling. This is one of the my 7 avoid disaster diet lifestyle thingies. This is part of the get good. The avoid disaster is just avoiding a disaster. But how do you get good? That's when you take it up a notch in each one of these levels. You got it. Get good.
Invite Muhammad Faris. He's great at this.
Yeah, get me Muhammad Faris. Get his number for us. I don't know who he is, but I keep hearing the name.
Book and like I listened to his audiobook twice already.
Oh, that's good.
It's really good. He talks. It's pretty much replacing hustle culture, which like our West
Yeah.
said, replacing Mubarak culture.
Ajib. Okay. So one of them is to milk that hour in the morning, right? You milk that hour in the morning, you're going to be good in your life in general. Not only your life, your mood, your health, everything will be better. And then there are other things for each one of those categories. That's the get good. How to get good.
So at that time you have clarity. Who else is up?
You have clarity.
You can concentrate.
And it's also just, as the Prophet said, the rizq is distributed. If Allah the angel find you sleeping, they're not giving you any. Ladies and gentlemen, we gotta run. Today we have the prophetic iftar in the masjid. If you are in or around New Jersey, you want to join us, it's all the prophetic foods minus lamb. Minus lamb, right?
For camel meat.
No camel meat either. No camel meat, no lamb, and there were no chickens in Medina. If you think about it, you never see a hadith about chickens, right? Maybe other birds, but no chickens. And the Prophet didn't eat the dabb. You know about dabb? It's the desert lizard, basically. Yeah. Dabb is a weird animal. Dabb is an animal, the nerves are very odd. The nerves are very sensitive and odd, such that in the pan, the thing is moving. In the pan. Anytime temperature changes with dabb, it shakes. I'm not even kidding you. In the Tupperware, you take that glass, you put it in the glass container, it's warm. You put it in the fridge. As it cools down, it starts shaking in the fridge.
Dead.
It's dead. It's cooked. Khalas. Cut up and cooked. Look it up on YouTube in Arabic. Dabb. Dad ba. Dabb yataharrak. He's going to look it up right now.
That's
Dabb.
another thing that
Lizard.
the Prophet said?
Prophet didn't speak. Didn't eat it.
Oh, no, but didn't it speak to the Prophet?
No, the Ketif spoke.
Oh, okay.
Dabb is something that is, it's a desert lizard, and the Prophet did not eat it. He said it's not for the food of my... Arctic 2 says there is a hadith about chicken. Okay, good. What is it? Share it with us.
Hands loaded or a machine?
Our Pilates... listen, when it comes to Reiki and yoga, just take it from what I've said. That's my understanding of it. Okay. Now someone goes and finds some fact that we weren't aware of that would change things. Okay. You see that? It's, look. Oh my, share it with whoa, share that video with everyone. Pause it. Oh my gosh, that was some nasty stuff. That was nasty stuff. I told you, didn't I tell you, I tell people stuff all the time on Twitter, and they say, you're making stuff up. My record of making stuff up of that claim is 100% failure if you bring that claim at me. I 100% always bring the receipts. Fade the screen over to this nasty stuff. Look at him cooking the dabb. Watch the temperature change. Now watch. The thing is beheaded, skinned. It's beheaded and it's moving like a dabb. Look.
And it has no intestine, nothing.
Nothing. Look. Oh man, that was nasty. That was so freaky. Look. Whoa. I'm not eating this jinn. This animal is possessed by jinn. That was a joke, by the way. It's not possessed by jinn. It's just how it is. Okay, Romo says, please answer my question before you leave. What's that? Dabb stock went down today. Romo's question. Where is your question, Romo? Before we leave, we'll give him. How can we get to shorten our sleep? I wouldn't encourage you to wage war on your sleep, but just sleep at the right time. Okay? Sleep at the right time, I would say, which is early. The earlier you sleep, the less sleep you need because you get good sleep. I'm looking, Romo, for your question. Sufyan Ben is always on me for some reason. He's always, I don't know if he's being funny or what. Romo, I can't see your question. Don't tell me to go read your question. Put the question again because I can't scroll up. I can't see it here. Do my question, please, says Rumu. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I suddenly developed a fear of marriage and a deep resentment towards men, which is strange because I was raised in a household with the best father, uncles, and brother. I don't know what to do. Well, what is the problem here for this individual? Do you want to marry but are afraid of it and resent men? Or do you not want to marry? If you don't want to marry, and you resent men and you fear marriage, then you have no problems because you don't want to marry, right? If you do want to marry, then but you resent men and you fear marriage, then you simply have to ask Allah subhanahu to cure your heart of this fear, or you can sit with somebody. This is maybe a counseling, maybe beneficial here, where you can go back and see why is it that you resent men, right? And try to maybe with your friends and your family to undo why you hate the men so much. And not all men are that great. So you may have good evidence to hate men, but you also have other examples of men who are good examples. Okay? So you can talk it out, and you can also ask Allah to clear your heart of these fears and these resentments. And you could just remind yourself that marriage is a sunnah and rely on Allah Ta'ala and do your due diligence. Okay? And just for the record, Bukhari has a hadith in which the Prophet ate chicken. Okay? Because I said, no, well, it is true that the chicken is not prominent in the seerah. But here there is a hadith. قال رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يأكل دجاجة. All right? So let's screenshot that and send it to Prophetic Iftar to get us some fried chicken at least. You know, people go and they eat afterwards because they're used to like food. But Prophetic Iftar is good if you get the honey, you get the yogurt, you get the olives, you get the bread, you're good to go. What else do you need? Can I pray behind an imam who's from a sect that has innovation? The answer to your question is, if it's every single person in that sect has a deviant doctrine, then we don't pray behind them. It's forbidden to pray behind them. Like the Shia, right? And there's deviation the prayer will be invalid completely. Like the Qadianis. Do they even pray? I don't even know. Right? But if it's a sect where maybe they have a deviation and maybe they don't, and a lot of times they do, then we would say no. Only if you heard that person utter the deviation, then you don't pray behind them. Okay, so that's where the deviation is maybe. Maybe they have it, maybe they not. A lot of them do, a lot of them don't. Then we would have to go by the person. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله